Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and make yourself at home here. Just to get started, our focus here for this meetup is clearly around Agile and Lean. The thing about Agile and Lean is, as you know, that in the workplace now, in a lot of companies, not just high-tech, every organization is trying to be Agile. The latest survey for State of Agile that came out last year, 97% of companies said.
Sorry, recording.
So 97% of organizations responded saying that they are practicing Agile in their company. And at the same time, thanks, Jim. So at the same time, also something like 84% are saying that they are less than mature and still experimenting in spots and things in their organization. So people are still fumbling around trying to make it work and all these things, right? And by the way, any of you having done Agile one way or the other, Scrum or any other way, you know that this is an evolving thing, not because you did it well once that you continue to do well. So the reason for all this is this, that the way every company now, when they develop any product or services, is now laden with technology or with software or sensors or something, right? And so there's a very big effort to make that happen. And in doing that, between doing well and not doing well, the difference is drastic and could be quite fatal to companies. If your teams cannot produce things fast enough, cannot produce productively enough, so you cost more, and you cannot adapt to the market quickly enough, any of these things, or your quality lags behind, that can be eventually the death of the company, right? So the stakes are very high. So what we are trying to do, David and I set this up so that we build right here a community of lifelong learners, Agile and Lean lifelong learners, and meaning that is yours. So we do hope that you keep coming and contribute and participate, ask questions and interact. We are putting this together for you, I mean for you to know. How do we run it? So the format, until we change it, and it's up to your request, the format is this. So we put this up, so anytime, if anybody has a job opening or something, you can post it. If you're looking for work, you can post it as well. And we put this thing, this is sort of like an Agile thing. If there's something you think we should do that we're not doing, just put it here, we will take your input. Or we should stop doing something we're doing, we should do less of something, do more of something, or we can improve on something. We would really appreciate your feedback, all right? Anytime, okay? Stand up, move around anytime. That's good for you physically. And the other thing too is future topics, if you have any suggestion, please.
You're missing on that chart is continue. In other words, things we're doing right that may not need improvement, but continue.
Yes.
How about you just put out the improving, because that's part of what we're doing. If we keep continuing what we're doing, I think we'll be stagnant after a few periods. If I put in improvement, I always can. Help me improve.
Sure, but it's a question of trying to differentiate between that which is going well and that which needs improvement.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. That's good. Thank you. That's very helpful. All right. So with that, and of course, like any self-respecting meetup, we do have exciting guest speakers for you as well. So for tonight, the guest speaker tonight is going to, he was a senior executive at the Gartner Group, you all know the Gartner Group, and he's now managing principal at AgiLeanIT's, so purely in this practice, and AI. He has advised, senior executives both in IT and in the business on, on lean and agile development, multiple industries. So tonight, I'm not going to steal the thunder here. Tonight, the topic is how to translate business strategies and business objectives into the lean and agile transformations that to deliver to those goals. And he will share the techniques and experience. So please welcome Hamid Nouri.
Good evening. Thank you for joining this evening. And let me start off by just a little bit of the intro about myself. As Han mentioned, I've been in the consulting side of things for about 20 years or so. And before that, I was at Countrywide for about 5 years as the head of IT in the area of data center management, infrastructure support, deployment of distributed systems, and in software development in the early 1980s. So I've been around a number of different industries, especially since I became a consultant about 20 years ago. I actually joined Gartner to run their consulting practice in the mid-90s. I started as the lead of their technical architecture practice, and from there we built a number of practices. Back in those days, the ERP was a big thing, to be able to put in new standardized systems to run your back office. And then eventually Y2K came about. That was a big deal for a long time during the latter parts of the century. And then for the last 18 years or so, a variety of projects. And that's what led me to now specialize in the areas of lean and agile. And as you heard from Hong, this has become a very, very timely and a high interest topic for many organizations, especially as the rate of competition and the pace of competition has increased with every industry. You could get competitors coming into your industry anytime without any kind of notice. People are now worried about, will Amazon be in my business if I'm distributing pharmacy, as an example? Or will I be buying my food from Amazon? Or how will I actually share my mother-in-law unit that I have using Airbnb? All kinds of concepts are emerging and disrupting many industries. So for a lot of the clients I've been working with, the concept really has converged around how do I use Agile, how do I use lean startup concepts, and how do I use the methods that have been proven in the past in how strategy should be developed to better form my strategies and better be able to approach the market. So that's basically the focus for my practice for the last 5 or 7 years, is to develop methodologies that can actually help organizations achieve that. This actually has led to a process by which we actually combine strategic planning for business with the concepts of business performance improvement through lean methodologies, and also combining it with agile and scaled agile methods to be able to build systems. Because these days you can't really do much in business unless you're able to bring new products and solutions that are providing better ways of reaching out through different channels to your customer base. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. There's a lot of content here, but I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to interact. So I think questions are the best way to make sure that I'm focused on the concepts that you want to hear about. All of this is available via a link. This is a presentation. It's about 50 pages, so it's a lot of content. A lot of it I'll just spend a few seconds on, 30 seconds or so, just to tell you why it's here and how is it relevant to our discussion. But I'd like to make sure that you chime in with questions. I think interactive discussion is probably the best way to talk about the things that you care the most about. We'll have a chance to talk about what is the relationship between lean and agile, basic stuff, and how is agile different than scaled agile, and what are the players, what are the acronyms, the things that you want to hear about. Because I realize not everybody has had many years of agile coming into the session. For some, it's brand new concepts. For others, they've been doing it for a while. They want to go to the next level of advancement in that topic or bring new capabilities to the organization. That today is a challenge for them. So I'm happy to stop the topic and make sure it's focused on the things that you want to hear about. So please do feel free to chime in or stop me whenever you feel appropriate. As I mentioned, if you'd like to take notes, there's page numbers on these. So if there's something in here that you want to ask about, I'm available via email. You can always send me a quick note. Or if you want to write down a question that intrigued you, to just take down the page number as we get to that topic, write yourself a note, and then when you download the PDF, you'll be able to see the actual page and then come back to me or any of our folks here at Meetup, and then if you have a question, you can converse about it on email or other means appropriate. So let me get started. So this is about the LeanAgile Meetup itself. You already know about this. Your mom mentioned it to you, so I won't spend any more time on it. I'm very excited to be a part of this. I'm the second speaker, I think, for your second meetup. I'm looking forward to the future sessions that will be held here, and hopefully be able to contribute further to the topics that are of interest to this group. This is our agenda. We have, as you can see here, about an hour allocated to this discussion. But I understand that we want to keep it interactive. So if you have questions where we have to veer off and have a 5-minute side discussion about anything, we'll go a little bit beyond 8 o'clock. The intent is to make sure you have enough time to also interact and talk about questions, problems, topics that are of interest to you. So if you have a whole 25 or 30 minutes dedicated to making sure that you have an opportunity to talk to folks we want to hear about and talk about the specific topics. So that's our agenda. Hope we finish around 9. I understand that doors close at 9:30. So probably between 9 and 9:30, we'll have to wrap up the process here. Okay, so what are we going to do in today's session? As I mentioned, what you're going to hear about is the highest level view of why this topic matters. And what we start with is business strategy. How do I think about, how do I debate, how do I develop new ways of competing differently in my specific industry? How do I analyze the impact of digital technologies? How do I understand what can have a high impact in my specific business? So we'll start with that conversation. How do we actually start to put this on paper, and how do we have quick discussions about it rather than a 6-month to a year strategic planning process? What we find is organizations no longer have the patience or the energy or the time to spend 6 months to a year to create a 300-page plan. Those days are far gone. What they really want is to have a 15-minute conversation about what if Microsoft did this, or Amazon did that, or Google did this, and what is the impact, and how do I take advantage of this new technology? How will artificial intelligence change how I interact with this portion of my customers? Those are the kind of topics they want to talk about, and they want to do it quick. Nobody has 6-month time to analyze or dive deeper into the cost structure of the company. Very, very hard to do. So we want to talk about how do you do that very quickly, and how do you visualize the information so anybody can participate and quickly get to the points that are important. Which means you're going to have subject matter experts that will interact in maybe an hour or 2 and come up with strategic plans that can be experimented with. There is no longer that 2-year or 5-year plan. Those days are long gone. We have to learn to experiment. Whether you're Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Amazon, or GM, you have to find ways to quickly have these discussions and be able to come up with experiments that let you prove something and do something with it, or set it aside, called pivot in our terminology. We'll also talk about another concept that you may have heard about or are interested in, is the concept of value stream mapping. This is the concept that has been popularized with the trends that we saw in the 80s and 90s around quality management, or total quality management, or Waldridge Award. These concepts laid the foundation for what is referred to as the lean methodologies as a way to improve business performance. Value stream mapping is one of those tools in the tool bag of the lean consultant to be able to understand what the business does and how exactly it performs. Very difficult to do. How do I know I'm making money if I'm McKesson or GM? What are my value streams? Who benefits from it? What is my cost structure? How is it different than my competitor? How will Google change the way I compete in my industry? How do I understand and analyze that? So value stream mapping is a way for us to have those discussions. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what that is and how it can help inform our discussions around how to do something in my business to help achieve a certain outcome that I have in mind. And finally, linking all of this to your specific Agile projects. For many of you, it may be you just heard about an Agile project that's going on someplace with a small team, with 6 or 10 people, who's really happy and getting a lot of acknowledgement. But the company has already experimented 2 or 3 times to try to make it 4 teams or 5 teams, and it just craters and falls apart. And scaling Agile is one of the key challenges. If you were doing Agile, that's a common issue. Yeah, Agile is great for that small team and that unique personality, but not for the bigger project or the bigger portfolio, it doesn't work, it doesn't scale. So one of the key topics that's emerged is how do you scale these agile methods? How can we do that if you have 5,000 people in IT? What if you have 50 development teams? What if you're trying to create the next big hardware project that would send something to the moon? How do I do that? How do I take advantage of agile methodologies? Well, scaled agile methods are trying to go after that problem. There are several out there, and there's several methodologies for promoting it. One of the most popular one that you'll hear more and more about is something called Scaled Agile Framework, SAFe, for short, SAFE. Actually, Hong actually has a course at UC Santa Cruz that talks about that and teaches folks what SAFe is all about. In essence, that comes from Dean Leffingwell, who is again a long-time software engineer, software developer, who's been around methodologies for about 40 years or so. And he was looking for ways to improve upon scalability of agile methods. And he, in essence, started to combine several methodologies, such as Scrum, such as XP, and Lean, into a more scalable architecture. The methodology is free. You can actually go on the web, and you can find it very easily at scaledagileFramework.com. All the content is free, and the way the organization is actually able to make money off of that is by certifying individuals who are interested in it, and in essence, getting sponsors who are interested in doing consulting or becoming agile coaches or trainers on the concept. Very popular. They're probably twice as popular as other methodologies today, like LESS, or Nexus, or Spotify. There's a few other ones out there. Many of them try to take the working concepts of Agile and try to make it work at higher scale with higher number of teams. That's the basic concept. So those are the three topics we're going to spend time on. Please go ahead.
Could you write down what were the other...
Actually, it's in here. I'll point them out to you. Actually, there's comparisons. There's a lot of detail in here. Hopefully, you'll like the content that I have for you here. There's both the names as well as comparisons of those methodologies. So you'll have it in your download. All right, so that's a little bit about me. As I mentioned, about 35 plus years. The last 20 in consulting, different industries. Right now I'm engaged with the largest private healthcare provider in Portugal. We are doing completely their new digital strategy using third generation electronic health record systems, combined with emerging technology around remote monitoring, artificial intelligence, and new practices around medicine. So those are the kind of projects that I usually support for clients. And I get to practice some of the things that I'm showing to you today with clients by using the methods to develop the content and the specific actions coming out of it. I also have been around IT for a while, so I've been doing ITIL and IT service management and ISO 20000, which is the infrastructure side of things back in the 2000s. That was a time when service management was very popular, having incident and change management of basic architectures to be able to run IT professionally. So those things were my focus in the last decade, and I'm also a CISSP, so I've been around security issues for a long time as far as focus and specialization. All right, so discussion agenda. I'm going to talk about how to start a business strategy and how do you actually link yourself if you're as a project manager or working on an agile project. How do you link yourself back to what's going on at the business level so that the CEO cares about what you're doing? How is it connected? This is a common issue in every organization we work with. Being able to tie it to specific metrics. Why should you care? Why should a CEO or COO care about a project that you're working on? Or if you're participating in deciding what that project is, what do you do to measure your success and your contribution to the business performance? So we'll talk a little bit about metrics. Then we'll talk about what is the latest trends in terms of digital technologies. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, conversational interfaces. These are all things that everybody's trying to figure out how it applies to their business. How do we evaluate those things? And then, of course, value stream mapping, how to measure things, how to connect that to your specific projects within your IT or software development business, and then, of course, critical success factors. All right, so starting from the top, why is this relevant? Pace of change has changed. I've been working with a lot of clients that used to do 3-year plans, 5-year plans. And in the last 5 years, those who kept doing it they ended up completely putting it aside in the last 3 years. What happened was the drivers completely changed. Competitors completely changed. You have to get into a mode of being able to continuously evaluate and update your strategies. You cannot do those 2 to 4 to 5 year plans any longer. And for everybody, that means you have to figure out a way to think and innovate faster, create new value with existing clients and existing dimensions, be able to embrace experimentation. How do I know blockchain will work in this function? How do I know I can apply artificial intelligence to improve this service to a client? Well, the only way is to experiment. And there's principles within these methodologies that help you with that process. Also, you want to be able to transform from the traditional legacy silos of functions or function orientations, finance and marketing and operations and logistics, trying to figure out how to work together, to focus on holistic experiences for your customers, for your employees, and for your partners. When you build systems, the customer journeys have become the most important point of view, rather than how do I optimize between two functions that are siloed function in the business. So being able to look at these drivers in your industry and then look at how exactly this has to bring new capability to bear. Being able to mass personalize and customize to audience of one. I can no longer do mass production of anything. I have to be able to customize to individual clients, partners, and stakeholders. How do I do local adaptations if I'm operating in 5 countries? How do I make sure that a concept that makes sense, if I'm Uber, and I want to take Uber to Mexico, Uber to South Africa, how do I tailor and be able to do that in my industry? And of course, the legacy IT issues have not changed. IT still struggles to show value. IT still doesn't know how to connect and develop requirements with the business. And they don't know how to show value to the CEO. Those issues are still with us, hasn't gone away. And almost every organization that you go to, they say, we spend so much money in IT, you don't know what we get. It's almost a common theme in every organization. So can digital transformation help? The answer is yes, that's why many organizations are going in this direction. Common challenges, why agility is needed in this kind of transformation? Because more and more of the projects are this kind of a profile. The requirements are not well understood. I don't know how blockchain is going to help me. All I can tell you is that there's maybe a concept that's useful to me. I have to figure out how to start to experiment. So we don't know much about requirements, we just know that it may help us. Many times we overbuild in terms of features. The averages are that more than 50% of the projects have kind of functionality that is not used by any of its users. Imagine your Microsoft Office or Excel. How much of the Excel functionality most of us use? At best, 15%, maybe 20%. 80% of that goes unused. That's why companies like Google can have Google Sheets with 20% of the functionality and still be able to deliver the same level of capabilities. So we overbuild and build too many features into our products. Projections and being able to actually do estimates is very, very difficult. This is called the cone of uncertainty. When we first start a project, we know the least about that project. But most management wants to know the exact dollar amount when you start. Tell me between 17 million and 18 million, right? Well, what do? You just pat it and say, well, maybe 25, and if I do better, maybe I got lucky. The point is that it's very difficult to accurately do any kind of estimates. So traditional methods do not really work well, especially when it comes to estimation. Especially because they require an estimate in a business case in advance. Yes, go ahead.
So how does Google monetize on the free Excel that they're giving?
Ecosystem. So think about how a Microsoft ecosystem competes with an Apple ecosystem, competes with the Google ecosystems. So when you're talking about the biggest players that we were talking about here, it's all about ecosystem. So Google has been taking 10 to 20% of their profits and building all of this free stuff. Of course, they started charging for it, with G Suite. Now you pay 25 bucks a user and all that, but for many, many years, you could get the Google Office at no cost. You could get many functionalities from Google, from email to XYZ, all at no cost. Why they want to do that is because they want you to participate in their ecosystem. compared to the Microsoft ecosystem, compared to the Apple ecosystem. And of course, if they can, they want to monetize it. But remember that the reason they can do that is because they're number one in terms of ads. Targeted. It was the only game in town until Facebook showed up with a viable model, basically. So Google used advertising as a way to subsidize that ecosystem. But once they got enough users through universities and other places, they're now charging you for it. Many organizations have started to migrate to it because it's less expensive, but then you lose something. The question is that important to you if you lose something or not? Still, you have 85% that use Microsoft Office because they want to have all kinds of remote functionality or disconnect functionality, as well as the richness that it offers for other things they want to do. That's a long discussion by itself, but ecosystem is the main answer to that question. So again, changing the paradigm is very important because our projects today are no longer predictable, and traditional methods and traditional PMI approaches are not always going to work for us. Yes, please.
Just want to comment on requirements. Not
Please.
understood. That's not always a failing of effort or anything. Sometimes the requirements are not understandable because the market's changing too fast. Competitors are
Yes.
on the horizon, etc.
Absolutely.
Requirements not defined or definable.
Exactly. It's actually more of the latter, I would argue, to your point. It's not definable. It's not that I did a poor job of understanding what you wanted. You didn't know what you wanted. You wouldn't even know until you see it in action, maybe a year from now.
Or
And
you had
after
an
you
idea last year, but now your requirements have moved as the market's moved, etc.
Exactly, exactly. So yes, absolutely. These are the reasons why traditional methods tend to be challenged. Because of the pace of change and how the world is changing around us. So the methodology that you usually try to advocate as we talk to clients about these kind of issues and challenges is the ability to connect these things together so that when the CEO asks, why am I investing $150 million in this project? Or why are you asking for 50 more people in this function? There's a rationale to that discussion. And there's a direct line between the investments you're making in IT and projects back to the specific business reasons and the competitive strategies that you have. So that's basically the goal of this process. So the business and digital transformation strategy defines the focus that you have to have around the processes and the people that need to be there to be able to transform the business, supported by your IT and lean projects for business. So it starts with documenting, understanding your model, business model canvas, then supporting it with specific digital transformation opportunities that have a meaning to your business and your competitive line strategy, then translating that into specific value streams that create value for segments of your customer base. Being able to show those linkages and show how you will get value from that and how you measure it is the key to success. And that's basically what I'm going to try to share with you in example and illustrations in this discussion. Okay, so these are the strategic questions. If you're trying to develop the strategic plan for organization, you usually have to ask these questions. Who's the competition? What's the value proposition? Why do people buy from us? How many different customer segments do I have? How is that customer segment changing? How is their behavior? How are their needs evolving and changing? What is our strength? What can we do to compete better in our specific industry? What can we take advantage of? Something that we do well. What are the digital opportunities? What can we do differently? Can I use artificial intelligence differently? Can I use the new concepts around conversational interfaces differently? Maybe that's where opportunities lie for my specific needs. How do I get to new markets? Can I take what I have and apply it to a different market or a different segment? How can I take advantage of some of the lean startup concepts around building, measuring, and learning, and creating these new business models? These are the kind of questions we want to ask, because it helps us define what those opportunities are in our business, and then be able to document it. A very common tool these days that you may hear about is called the business model canvas. A gentleman out of Switzerland actually popularized this in the last 5 years because it's a very easy way to have a discussion around why and how you compete in your industry. What it does, it takes the business strategy and puts it into 9 key building blocks. And what this does for us is allows us to have discussions about specific things. So if I have an opportunity to go online, it's a channel discussion. If I can go to a subscription-based revenue model, it's a revenue discussion. If I can have a reduction in cost because of application of blockchain in this contract, it's a cost reduction opportunity, so on and so forth. It allows us to have these key elements all looked at and put together in a very quick diagram, a large piece of paper, and the subject matter experts who know something about my industry can have 15-minute conversations. What if we actually added a subscription model? What if Lyft could actually sell you a $30 a month model of some sort that you gave them because you had the need for a specific type of service? That's an example. What if you didn't have to just go mile per or dollars per mile kind of model? What if you actually could market differently or communicate differently to your customer? You could actually have those discussions depending on what industry you're in and what proportion of your business you're talking about. This is an example of Uber. And you can see how very quickly what they do and what they use. Their primary channel is the Uber app. Obviously, that's how they deliver their service. That's how they connect you to a driver. Of course, they communicate with you and they also market to you through other channels, but this is their primary delivery channel. And their customer segments are the drivers and the riders. And then you can actually take each one of these categories and then create subsegments. Older, disabled people, that's one category. Kids needing to go to school, another category, so on and so forth. Each one of those categories then could have different models for revenue stream, for cost structure, for resources it needs, so on and so forth. It is a quick way for us to put all of this into a wall and have a discussion about it and guess what the impact would be on our business. And then I'm giving you here the specific kind of ways that you can measure what the CEO cares about. Depending on your industry, these will be different, but this is an example. It happens to be from pharmaceuticals. The key performance indicators for this industry happens to be administrative costs, amount of inventory, lost sales and service, and their transport and warehousing capabilities. Those are the core metrics for them. Well, they need to have an idea of how they're performing against those core metrics and what is an optimal digital performance like? Who's doing it and what's possible in my industry? Once I understand through some research those ideas, then I can have a target performance. So what are you doing? You're actually talking about things that matter to how you make money in that business. And you're putting specific targets, and those specific targets then going to have specific projects associated with it. That's how we want to be able to articulate and get support for projects. This is other metrics when you're trying to do some kind of a scaled agile deployment as an example. When you first start, it takes a long time to get traction. However, if you have a team of 5,000 trying to do stuff, you better have ways of understanding what's going on. Who's doing better, who's doing worse, what can I do to help enable certain teams. There's ways that we can actually measure some of those things through a lot of self-assessments and reporting from the projects that are going on every day. This is an example of what an actual business model discussion looks like. You put this little chart on the wall, and you start to look at specific customer segments and come up with ideas that you want to experiment with. After an hour discussion with 2 or 3, 4 people in the organization who know something about your business and your industry, you have a few ideas here that you can experiment with. This may generate 3 or 4 ideas about what you could actually experiment with and see what can actually help you with that strategy. Another key idea is that I want to be able to take advantage of emerging digital technologies. You'll hear about this quite a bit these days. Everybody wants to take advantage of something that's coming. Of course, the most prominent ones that you hear about is Bitcoin. Everybody wants to do something with Bitcoins. But that's just one instance and one use case of blockchain technologies. Technologies that can actually be used for many different use cases. But today it's all about the currency, a virtual currency being the hottest thing. But there are other things, artificial intelligence. How do I apply machine learning to my business? How do I take advantage of big data analytics, cloud services? If I'm in healthcare, how can I tap the data that is available through Kaiser or Geisinger or Google Health or Microsoft Health, whatever? How do I take advantage of that to be able to do a better job being able to serve my patients? How do I take advantage of chatbots to give a better user interface to my clients? How do I get conversational personal assistants into my model? How do I take advantage of Alexa or any of the Google Home models of operation? blockchain, cloud to the edge and mobility, platform for service, API economy and microservices, immersive experiences, Internet of Things, robotic process, all of these things could have some application in your industry. So as you're thinking about these opportunities, you need to be able to look at specific value chains for your business or value streams and see if these technologies could be helpful in that particular area. This is the step 3 in the journey, and this is the idea of how do I actually take advantage of the concepts of Lean. So Lean is really about understanding how to remove waste from your business. Okay? That's the focus. How do I remove waste from my business? What that means is that everything that I do has some process associated with it. That process has certain costs and resources associated with it. Being able to map that process and then be able to remove non-value added activities and costs from it could have a huge impact on my business performance. So this is about how do I actually understand my value streams and then take out the cost that is not needed. So imagine having 100,000 transactions of some kind and taking 10% out of it because of a change in process. Could have a huge impact. Organizations that do this well actually are more successful than others. So we want to be able to get to the point where we can understand and continuously improve our processes. Here's the detailed methods behind that. This is the Lean methodology. You start with plotting the main steps on how you create value, and I'll show you some examples here in a few minutes. Then you collect data on quality and time. These two are the 2 key factors that actually result in certain cost structures. Things that take 25 days could be reduced to 12 days, or 2 days, or 2 hours, depending on what it is, based on optimizing how you look at quality and time metrics. Finding opportunities to improve and innovate in particular process areas. Being able to investigate those areas and then prioritize the opportunities around process changes, system changes, structural changes, staffing and resources, and being able to train folks around. That's the methodology that we're going to try to put to use, and that's some of the details that you see on this side. Why is this important? I think we've all experienced this. We've experienced organizations who have poor process. You call somebody, left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, nobody knows what's going on in the organization. Things take excessive amounts of time. Sometimes weeks, sometimes months, and you don't get the response that you need. How does it look from inside? A lot of complexity, lots of exceptions, lots of circumvention process, a lot of information exchange that are redundant, lots of checking and double checking, lots of firefighting, so on and so forth. I'm sure you've all been part of organizations that have these as their core part of how they run their business. And they're trying very hard to keep it together. Being a value-driven organization and focusing on being a lean digital enterprise is all about removing waste. That's really what this is. Removing waste from the processes that you have, non-value-added activities. You can use technology to do that, but you can also do it by changing process. You don't always need technology.
The companies are following a top-down approach. Are they doing the complete enterprise transformation, or are they focusing on some department, some units?
Every organization is different. So there's not
very expensive, right? For doing entire organization transformation.
You could have both. You could actually have companies. In the case that I was describing to you in Portugal, the board decided that they needed this. So the board said, let's go out and hire a consultant from outside. Take a look at our technology capabilities and develop a new digital strategy. So it was for all of their operations. And there are organizations that are doing it for a specific business unit or a specific experiment or business that they want trying to get into. So it could be anywhere. But the point is that these are the kind of methods that are most useful in impacting your performance in your organization.
For example, many of the conglomerates, every year they're acquiring small companies and they're investing. So every time there is a complex system in place all the time.
Yes, yes. I mean, obviously, if you're a small company trying to come up with a whole new idea, there's not a whole lot of process. The whole process is what 3 of us know. And you're trying to create something that changes something for some client that you have. But if you're a huge company like Johnson & Johnson, there's many lines of business. Each line of business is unique. You're competing with different businesses. how you compete will be different, your cost structures are different. So basically, whether you do it for this line of business called Colgate toothpaste, that's an example, or how you do things for this huge business of moving something to the moon. Completely different processes, and both may need some kind of strategic help. So methods that we're talking about here could apply to both. Depends on what the issue is and the subject matter experts that we bring to the discussion. So again, we have lots of content, so I'm kind of running through this very quickly so you can see the concepts. But the idea here is that we want to achieve continuous flow. Small batches and continuous flow. That's what Lean brings to the organization. That is the most optimal way that you can run any process. Continuous flow. What does it do? It reduces lead times, it reduces work in process, reduces wait time, quickly identifies problems and fixes them, reduces handling, so on and so forth. And these ideas could be applied to any industry. This is an example of pharmaceuticals, from raw material and packaging to the full value chain of the manufacturers and R&D, the warehousing process, and eventually getting to the hospital, distributors, and pharmacy retail organizations. So that whole retail chain could actually be optimized at any part of this process, and the focus should be continuous. So what do we mean by value stream? So now that I've given you all of that, here's the definition for value stream. It's all the activities that an organization performs to transform an internal external customer request into a good or service. So it's whatever your customer wants. A value stream is the processes that you go through from initiation of a request to receiving that. In the case of Amazon, is when you start searching for something, you order something and eventually is delivered to your door. That full thing is the life cycle of how you interact with Amazon, as an example. But Amazon music is different. Amazon foods are different, so on and so forth. Every part of the business will be different. But it's all the activities that we go through from the time that a customer says I want something to the time that you receive that as the end customer. That's called the value stream. Okay? How do we map it? Very basic concepts. You have the customer on top, then you have processes that you go through, high-level processes. So there's a process box that talks about this is what's done in this activity, and here's the number of people involved with that. Then that process is done, goes to the next box, until the whole thing is done. For each one of these process boxes, you're going to have a data box. A data box collects information about that process that's important. Things like lead time, things like processing time, things like quality of the data that I need for that particular process to happen. All of this is collected, and then once you understand it, you're looking for optimization opportunities. I'll give you an example. So before I go to the example, actually, these are the typical metrics that I try to capture. The most important ones are lead time and processing. Processing time is the actual work done by an individual. What you find is that the actual work done for many processes matter of minutes or hours, but the actual duration could be days. It's 45 days to do something, but the actual work was 100 minutes, as an example. So the actual processing time, 100 minutes, is called PT. The actual total duration to get to the end of the process is called the lead time or cycle time. Okay? The reason you collect this data is because you want to know where the opportunities are. You also want to understand how things sit in the queue and wait to be processed. You want to understand how complete and accurate the data is that you need to do the processing. Okay, you never want to give bad data or no data to the next step in the process. And you want to get as much of the quality data upfront as possible. That's the least amount of cost you could incur as an organization. And there's other things. You have IT systems that actually impact how you do things, the demand rate for that process, so on and so forth. Again, we don't have enough time to get into the details of it, but I'll give you a couple of examples here. This is a customer report card. When we first start, what we need to do is for that industry, for that business, ask our customer what's important and how is the company performing in that area. And specifically how you actually doing compared to your competition. Because if everybody's doing it in 12 days, then there is no issue. But if somebody's doing 12 days, somebody's doing 25 days, then there's an issue. So you want the customer to tell you how you're performing in this area. So if you're getting an F here because how long it takes to do something is really long, then you better try to figure out how to improve that. This is the example that's filled out. This is an example of a processing of individual and family insurance policy. So a typical insurance company gets an application in, needs to process and give you a policy. So you can see here, process box, fill out the apps, packs to the center, receive, sort, and log, process the application, make an underwriting decision. Big process boxes, right? Collection of the data, process time 20 minutes, lead time 1 day, completion and accuracy 55%, 10 apps per job. Cycle time, 1 day. Then it goes into the receive and sort, process time 30 seconds, processing application 7 minutes, underwriting between 10 to 50 minutes. This whole process is somewhere between 60 to 80 minutes total from the time that you receive the request. Right now it's taking over 11 days. This is an example. So the conversation becomes, what's causing this? This.
So why does the graph go like this?
I'm sorry, Raj, one more time?
Why does it go up and down? Like
Oh, okay. Actually, this is just showing you the duration. This is the cycle time between this process and this process. So this is the output from this process is the input for this. And this is down here showing you how long this is taking versus how long this is taking versus how long this is taking. It's just showing you the cycle time between each process. So the processing gets done in X number of days, then it waits in the queue, then it gets processed, and waits in the queue, gets processed. This is an example, of course. Is it getting warm in here, or am I the only one?
No.
Or is that okay?
I asked if some people were too cold.
Oh, that's fine. I'm fine. I just want to make sure people are not warm.
Just a check. Are you comfortable?
I'm fine.
Go up or down? No. You're comfortable. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, great. Is this on target? So let me just do a checkpoint here. Is this information useful to you?
Yes.
Okay, so far so good? Okay, good. So this is again an example, just to give you a flavor for the concept. And here, we're actually going to go ahead and give you another example that is simpler. This is about recruiting. I will go find somebody to join my company. So it starts with identifying the need for that resource, finding and selecting that candidate, negotiating an agreement on onboarding. 4 boxes. But it turns out all of this, from a processing point of view, takes about 23 hours. But how long it takes to get somebody on board is over 1,300 hours from the time that somebody said, I want something. So lots of non-value-added activities between the time that somebody said, I want somebody, to the time that I brought them on board. I haven't onboarded the individual. This is called the activity ratio. This kind of highlights the difference between actual processing time and what it takes for you to get things done. And you can see here processing time and lead time examples, what it takes to actually do this thing called identifying need, and how long it actually takes for it to go from here to here. Just an example here, right? Percent complete and accurate, as far as data is needed, all the way to delivery of all of its capabilities. So I'm going to take you to the next page here. Here, we've actually now started to say, well, who's involved in this process? There's a hiring manager, there's a recruiter maybe, there's a candidate, there's 3 systems, ZipRecruiter, an Access database, and Workday. These are the systems and the people involved in the process. And so we start a mapping process. Okay, first step is, what is the recruiting strategy? And that actually allows us to assign a position ID in Workday, so that the system knows that we are looking for a new position to be created. Then the HR recruiter posts the job, puts it also into the ZipRecruiter system to analyze the position better, then posts the open position, log the position, you get the picture. This is the process. And what you want to be able to do is to look at how this is done in your organization to see why it's taking 200 days to get somebody onboarded.
And there are many external dependencies.
Absolutely, and if there are external dependencies, you want to add them here. This is the mapping process. Go ahead.
I'd like to add a comment, if I may. A lot of time, one of the biggest type of waste in an organization is wait time, and that's why processing time can be short. Because everybody is working very efficiently, but you have a lot of wait time, and so the lead time is humongous. and nobody is in charge of wait time, right? So
Exactly.
it goes invisible.
Or nobody's responsible for process, right? That's the issue. And exactly, wait, and when we say non-value added time, is exactly that, wait time. Do I really need to wait 3 days for this? Many times, no. It just happens to be because somebody has to take the file and move it from here to here, and it takes the bus 2 days to get here before it's moved to this location. We just lost 3 days.
And
Simple stuff.
And every process is not critical, right? Critical process gives the priority.
Exactly. We're just using this as an example of how to analyze, because organizations don't think in terms of process. But these are the biggest cost drivers. These are the biggest opportunities to understand where the value add of any technology could be. That's the topic that we want to be able to focus organization on. Once we've done that analysis and understood how to take it from 25 days down to 10, because we removed all this non-value added stuff, fixed the system issues that was causing all of this, fired the bad contractor, put somebody good, all of that stuff. Then you're going to have the 10-day cycle time in this case. This is an example of a transformation plan that says these are the 10 or 12 things that I'm going to actually do. Everything from hiring somebody, training somebody, changing a process, firing a contractor, whatever it is that you decide to do is listed here, including playing around with blockchain, adding artificial intelligence, running an experiment, whatever they are, is listed with owners and the specific timelines and where you are in delivering that particular project. So this is how we actually create that real plan that says, I can fix this distribution problem from here to here and take it from 25 down to 12 days if I were to do these 10 things. Yes?
I wonder how many project managers we have here. And does the chart shows anything close to work breakout structure?
It may look like it, but it's actually not a work breakout because what it's doing is these are independent things. And specifically, within each one of these, they may be even agile projects that don't have the PERT charts and the work breakdown structures and all that. Instead, they have the program increment and the backlog and the implementation plan.
And it is the critical path, right?
And it's what?
It's a critical path.
Basically, yeah. So this is what the output is from that analysis. So we now understand the value stream, basically, and how it's actually going to be improved based on our work. Another concept that you'll hear about is, why is it Agile the only way to do things? I used to do things with traditional methods and waterfall for 20 plus years. Why does everything have to be Agile now? Well, not everything has to be Agile now. The key is picking up or matching the right project for the right methodology. It turns out, if you have a pretty good understanding of what you're going to deliver, if you've done it before, and you know what it takes to deliver it, actually traditional methods are great. They're the best way to do it. You could actually run it in a traditional way, define the Gantt chart, define the budget, and keep to the deliverables, and there's benefits up to doing that for certain kind of projects. The problem is that most of our projects are now in this other side of things where requirements are less known or not definable, and the technology complexity has increased. It's no longer simple. And when that happens, you start to find that there's a much better match in agile approaches than there is for traditional approaches. And that's the difference. You'll find less and less projects that can easily be solved with the traditional approaches. You need to have more versatility, you need to have more reaction time, you need to be able to expect and react to changes throughout the life of the project. This is called the Stacy matrix that shows that. And of course, at this level, where there's no agreement on what the requirements are and complexity is so high, you're just going to have anarchy. Okay? And there's no good way to deal with that. So here, we talk about steps to address uncertainties in digital transformation. So several suggestions here. Articulating clearly what needs to be built to support transformation. Specifically, we need to know who the customer is and what is the value proposition. So segment the customer. Who am I doing this for? Is it for every driver that exists in Uber, or is it for drivers of this sex, this age, and this kind of profession? Do I understand this customer segment I'm doing this for? And what is the specific value proposition? Am I mapping properly the journey of that driver's experience or the rider's experience? Those are key to achieving success. Being able to continuously engage and listen to the customer, both understanding things from a vertical point of view, to how to deliver value, as well as horizontally. Being able to have deliverable chunks of functionality and getting feedback continuously. Also, we want to be able to take that feedback and incorporate it into the project and into the experiment. We also want to be able to continuously and systematically experiment and apply new technologies. Again, architectural spikes and new ways of determining whether an idea can work, new ideas, new UXs, new experiences, and also having rapid deployment of new functionality into production. Those are some good practices that we should consider. This is, for those of you who are familiar with SAFe, as I mentioned, the Scaled Agile Framework methodology. This is the actual roadmap of how organizations usually start with SAFe. So there's more heat coming down the pipe.
Yeah,
Is that
we asked them to.
Okay.
Yes.
The one. Okay, great.
They let us either shiver
Either shivering or no air.
or sweating.
Okay.
So they're fixing.
Okay, great. So should I lead us over
I doesn't. We don't have the door stopper.
Oh,
so
okay. I can put this in front of it. Okay with it?
I don't think that would hold it.
Sure, my work.
That will not hold it.
No, okay.
No, that will not hold. I tried.
All right. All right. So let's see. Let me also do another check one here. So we are about 7:50. I have 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
What part of the discussion would you like to delve deeper into? Because what I have left here is a lot of detail about SAFe and Agile, scaled Agile methodologies that I'll share with you, but the framework and why it works and how it works and all that. Is that a good topic to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes on? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And just a comment. We're going to have an access to the PowerPoint presentation, to his presentation. You can download it and study it in more details.
Yep. Yep.
And of course, call him, ask him, send him
Email, please. I'll respond at 12 midnight. So as you can imagine, I'm on the road a lot, so the email is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. So this is the process by which we actually start this whole journey of bringing scaled Agile to the organization. We've talked about the challenge before. Basically, every organization has these little Agile teams that are doing great stuff, but there's only 5 to 10 people in it. And nobody else can replicate it, nor can they scale it. So there are several methodologies, including the Scaled Agile Framework, SAFe, that tries to deal with that issue. And what it does, really, it takes the basic interactions and ceremonies that you do for a small team, and how you actually develop software and deliver it at high frequency, and just scales it to multiple teams. And then there's enough coordination between those teams to be able to get to a larger initiative that is well planned and well delivered. That's the basic concept. So what do you do to start this process? Usually starts with value stream definitions. Understanding, if you have an organization of 2,000 IT people or 5 different business units, from finance to marketing to logistics, every one of those organizations have different needs. Every one of those organizations have different value streams. So usually we want to start with defining what those operational value streams are. Now what I shared with you is analyzing in detail what you can do to improve them. In SAFe, the way it's used primarily is just to organize our effort. So if you're going to have 10 teams, knowing which teams should be together and put into the same train, what's called an Agile release train art, is how you actually start the process. Deciding what value streams are best put together so that the teams can be all part of the same train. Okay. So we start with the operational value stream definition, then we decide what systems actually support those value streams that have to be a part of this, then we talk about the people who are going to be supporting those systems, and then eventually here, the development value streams that will have to be used to build those systems, and of course, organizing them into Agile release trains. So when you're talking about the scaled methodologies, all that is taking the ceremonies that work really well at small scale, how we do an increment or an iteration plan, how we do retrospectives, how we do scrums to be able to understand how to improve things. All of those concepts then would need to be taken to the higher scale. This is what's going to help us do that. These are a couple examples. There's two kinds of value streams we talk about usually. Either operational, which is about how you deliver your service, whatever you do as a business. The processes that deliver the end result to the customer is called the operational value streams. The processes that support the organization, like HR or finance and all that, are referred to as support value streams. And then finally, you have the development value stream. How exactly you organize your resources to develop the systems or enhance the systems to deliver to certain client. So in this case, it happens to be employee recruiting. The top one happens to be hospital patient services from the time that they arrive at the hospital to the time that they leave and they pay their bill. Consumer bank loan, from the time that you attract the customer to get a loan from you, to giving them the rates on the loan, all the way to the reward of the loan, and then closing the loan and starting the repayment process. That's called an operational value stream. Okay? So if you have a bank, you may have a commercial bank, you may have a retail bank, you may have a mortgage bank, so on and so forth. Each one is going to have its own value streams. That if you're doing something for the client or for your organization, you want to make sure you understand which part are you focused on. And each one of these value streams is going to have probably multiple systems that support them. For you to understand the value stream, you need to be able to document it. This is an example of how you document a development value stream. We call it the development value stream canvas. And specifically, it has a vision statement, who the stakeholders are, who the customer segment is, what solution is focused on, people and locations, channels, economic framework that you use, and key performance indicators. You want to be able to have a quick one-pager about each one of those value streams. Examples of definitions. This is an example of a consumer loan. Okay. Providing consumers with unsecured or secured loans. The customers are the existing retail customers. The triggers are that they want to borrow some money to the bank. Value received is repayment plus interest. And of course, it includes all the channels, the loan systems, credit scoring, core banking, so on and so forth. So that's how you can actually put on one page the definition of that value stream. And depending on who you are, the question that you would ask to be able to say, what are the value streams that I need to think about? So if you are an independent software vendor, it's really about the products you have. Whatever, if you're Adobe and you create Illustrator, your value is the software that produces the graphic artist capabilities. So every system or product could be a value stream, as an example. If you're a large multinational organizations, you may ask about key business processes, internal departments that you support, what internal and external customers are supported by you, so on and so forth. So depending on what kind of company you are, what you do for a living, you would ask different kind of questions to define the value streams that are important. This is an example of actually managing and reporting on the adoption of scaled agile framework for organizations. These are just examples, I won't get into it, but being able to automatically capture some of this, if you're doing this at a scale of 2,000 people that all have to learn and start to produce and forecast their velocity and produce outcomes, you want to be able to have ways to collect this data, and there's software out there that help facilitate the collection and reporting of that data. Scaling Agile actually allows you, or Scaling Agile for digital transformation allows you to organize and align all of your resources so that they're all headed in the same direction. Imagine having 50 different teams who are not coordinated and trying to produce something that adds value. Almost impossible for many organizations. You want to have a methodology that defines the relationship and the interdependencies and the interaction and ceremonies that are needed at all levels. So a Scrum Master at a team, all the way to a release train engineer, all the way to a portfolio manager. Those ceremonies have to be defined and executed properly. So this helps us to align the team through self-empowerment and adopting the manifesto values and principles, to scale the multiple teams to be able to take over and execute the large-scale transformation, estimating accurately and incrementally for large program increments, being able to deliver valuable chunks quickly. This is one of the biggest advantages of Agile methodologies. It produces value, working software, theoretically every 2 to 3 weeks. You may not deliver it to production, but the idea is that every time you do something, it's producing the value. And that's the key difference between agile methods and traditional methods that have life cycles that don't produce and deliver anything until the very end. And finally, being able to improve success dramatically by continuing to embrace some of the key values and principles that make it all work, basically. And I'll share with you some of those principles in a second. This is examples of the actual methodology. This is called the Scaled Agile Framework, as I mentioned before. It has several different layers. This is the essential layer. So at the essential layer, you're organizing yourself to have some key concepts already in place for your teams. The ideas of team and program. So the idea is that there's multiple teams as a part of the program. That's the essential level. At this level, there's going to be basic planning going on for your program increment. Each program increment typically is 2 to 3 weeks, and there's usually 5 increments within 5 iterations, within a program increment. At the end of each program increment, you basically do retrospectives and plan your next increment. And this goes on and on. Again, all part of an agile release train that delivers against the value stream that you have in mind. So this is called the essential, the basic components. There's DevOps that supports all of this. And of course, all the disciplines that go along with this, the concepts of XP, or Extreme Programming and Scrum, being part of the methodology here, and Kanban. And the key resources that usually are involved are a Scrum Master, Product Owner, and a Developer team. Basic roles in the team. This is the full framework. So you have the same team and same program at this level. But if you're dealing with a larger organization and larger projects, then there's additional layers of coordination that comes into play at the solution or large solution level and the portfolio level. So at this level, you actually have enterprise architects involved with all of your initiatives. There is direction that is set for the kind of systems you're building, and then there is the budgeting process that supports all of this along with a lean portfolio management team. So again, all of this coordination is scaled up to higher level and eventually to the enterprise. And behind each one of these ideas, there's actually hyperlinks that you can go and say, what does an architect do? What does a team do? What does a Scrum Master do? Or what is this concept all about? And you can actually see all of this online. It's all free. It's just a methodology that you can package. So some of the key success practices that we want to consider, extreme programming practices turns out to be a common thread across many agile methodologies. Some of those practices are useful to many different approaches, all agile methods. Skill sets, you want to go for T-shaped skills. I'll describe what that is. Team structures that are long-lived and high-performance teams. Changing reward mechanisms so people are incentivized to stay with their team and grow. And in essence, produce and be self-empowered team to deliver value. And finally, coaching and mentoring is needed to make it all happen. Starting with extreme programming. At the highest level, it's about shared understanding and fine-grained feedback that is part of this process, including pairing of programmers, and the collective ownership for the code that is being built. Whole team being involved in the planning and execution, simple designs, architecture, and user experience, building quality in through test-driven development, and sustainable pace. These methodologies are a core part of SAFe as well. XP and Scrum are the core foundation for how SAFe actually advocates adoption of Agile. T-shaped skills mean that you want everybody on the team to have a broad set of skills and can pitch in at any point in time. So if the developer is gone, the tester should be able to develop. If the tester is gone, the analyst should be able to step in and do something. So on and so forth. The idea is that everybody has broad skills and can work on many aspects of the project, but everybody also has deep skill sets. So I'm a very skilled Java developer. Right? So I have very deep skills here, so I work on the most difficult challenges as part of the team, but I can also pinch in if I need to for testing or for Scrum Master if I need to. That's the basic idea of a T-shaped skill sets, basically. All right, so what kind of resources do you need for this kind of implementation? So everything from coaches for leading Agile, value stream and process mapping experts, release train engineers, Scrum Masters, DevOps engineers, user experience designers and architects, system architects, enterprise architects, security architects, cloud architects, and integration architects. These are the kind of resources, depending on the project, depending on what scale you're working on, that may need to contribute, depending on where you are in the life cycle. And finally, in terms of the digital transformation approach, as you can see, lean management started with the Toyota way in the 80s and 90s. Agile development really started in the early 2000s with the principles and the manifesto. And it's now evolved to the concepts that are best represented by the lean startups. Lean startup concepts about building, measuring, experimenting. Those ideas, in essence, almost always rely upon the core Agile discipline and the key values. And that's where we're headed. More and more organizations need to be able to adopt and successfully deploy these new methods. In the appendix, I've left for you several things that Raj asked about early on. Lean really has 4 fundamental foundations: respect for people and culture, optimizing flow, enabling innovation, and relentless improvement. Improving is the part that's built into the whole process. Leadership has to lead it, and the focus is all about creating value. It's not about plans, it's not about how we actually do things 3 years from now. It's how to optimize value in the next 2 to 3 weeks and continuously deliver on value. Every decision is about what is the value of this to the business. Always prioritizing, always optimizing on delivering value to the customer. The key items of the manifesto are: we prefer, as Agile developers, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. We don't want to say, oh, process said this. We want to say what's going to work. How do I do this better? It's all about individuals together deciding how to do something better over relying on process and tools. Delivering working software rather than comprehensive documentation. Just enough documentation is the logic. Never go overboard. It's just enough to be able to deliver value to the client. Customer collaboration. Customer is a part of the team. A product owner or representative of the customer lives with you every day, 8 hours a day. They're part of the 2-week plan. They're the ones who sits with you and explains everything and demos the system to the actual end user or the vice president. It's all about customer collaboration, and of course, being able to respond to change over following the plan. It's perfectly okay if you decide to change everything that we're going to do in the next program increment, because we're able to adopt and adapt change. A little bit about the lean principles that are part of the SAFe methodology. These are discussions that take hours, but basic core 9 set of values. And finally, this has been proven. Many use cases, many case studies. You could go to the website and you can read detailed adoption scenarios from multiple industries. Typical scenarios are 30 to 75% faster time to market, 25 to 75% defect reductions, happier, more motivated employees, and increases in productivity. It's proven over and over and over again. A couple more slides comparing Agile to Waterfall in terms of commitment and delivery, decision and adaptability, tracking progress. I won't read them to you, but this is just reference for you so you can see the difference. So if somebody says, why should I, or what's the difference? You have a quick reference guide. And finally, one of the key concepts I want to leave you with is that incremental delivery is always going to give you some value a lot earlier in time. And having that value a lot earlier in time gives you a huge advantage compared to waiting 18 months or 2 years to deliver or to receive this. For many projects that do take this long, what happens unfortunately when you get to here, the whole thing gets canceled. Business changed, drivers changed, competition changed, something changed, and I got to cancel you. Well, with this kind of Agile methodologies, you've actually built something that you can take advantage of. With this approach, the whole thing is thrown away. Nothing has been delivered. That's the key difference. Waterfall, SAFe, less Spotify, Nexus, other examples that Raj asked for, and hybrid methodologies. The key is, do we understand the principles, and can we apply those principles to your environment to create additional value, and different kind of value, at a much more rapid pace for your environment. That's the key. Lots of challenges that go along with this. It is very much different than the traditional methods. It is not about top-down, it's more about bottoms-up. It's more about empowerment. It's more about self-realization. And that's a huge change for many, many organizations. So even though companies say, I've adopted Agile and I want to become this or that, they really don't understand it until the top level managers understand how to enable and stop asking with that per chart and budget and all the things that they typically see from the old projects. They try to replicate and duplicate for Agile. It doesn't work. These are fundamentally different approaches. So management and leadership has to understand the difference and support the kind of change that's needed. That's a little bit about what we do at AgiLeanIT, and that's it. So I know that we went over a little bit here. Questions that we should touch on? What topic was interesting to you from what you heard?
Oh gosh, everything. Because being practicing and I'm coaching in Agile, the more you talked about your life experience and you had a few examples, makes me think on how we can readjust to different settings.
Yes.
And it is just about having that mindset that we go and apply the principles to the actual real life needs. And there is no one set of rules. Of course, when we talk about traditional methods, look, Laurel and Boeing has been sending out the satellites for the past 40 plus years, and they've been doing mostly in traditional waterfall way. So building, building real high rises needs to go to traditional waterfall ways, which is good. It's working.
Yeah.
But even at the companies like Boeing, they're introducing Agile whenever it is possible, at any single interim processes that they can improve.
Yeah, good points. It really comes down to understanding the core values and principles and applying it. If you have that in mind, the methodology is secondary, but of course you want to have the tools and the methods guide you, but it's really applying the values and principles, understanding why they're different and how they add value differently than traditional methods, and being able to choose the right method for the right occasion. Really distinct. I promised you a little bit of an email response, so if there's anything in here you want to hear from me about, info@AgileLeanIT, that'll get to me. They'll route it to me. And of course, when you download this, you have this. My phone number is on there as well, but I'm less available on phone because I'm traveling and client sessions in a lot of days. But I'm happy to answer a question or a challenge that you run into or a question that you want to talk about. I'm happy to work with you. So with that, this is the formal part of this. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. No, we keep it there.
All right.
A couple of.
Oh, as far as you can connect with me if you I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you my name. If you just look me up, I think LinkedIn should pop me right up.
Yes.
Is when we download?
Yes, I will provide the download
Yes.
session. A couple of just before we leave, as Han said in the beginning, please come on over, pick up your notepad and include here. Before you leave, every meetup that we have, we want to ask 2 to 3 people, come up front, talk about the topics that you want. You can promote your company, come and share what you want to share with us. Again, this is a community that we will live. We wouldn't know about each other unless you share with us. Make sense? With that, do we have anybody who wants to share anything with us? Come. Talk about your company. Come on over.
Not my company.
Yeah?
Then the way to do it Agile.
Okay, doesn't matter. But whatever that would help us to build our community. With that, for instance, if you go to svprojectmanagement.com, is a new website that I inherited from our longtime leaders in this area. Kimberly and a few others have created that, and now we're revamping it. So we're going to need your help. Whoever wants to share ideas, contact me, contact Tom. We're revising, revamping the entire site, and we're looking for volunteers to take charge. Anybody wants to share anything? Yes, Tom? Come on over.
Yeah, since I want to share something. Since we are here, most of you are here for a reason because you're interested in learning about Agile or you're practicing Agile. So I want to bring something that is slightly different. A lot of things, and think about it, not everything is Agile, not everything is about learning and discovery, right? Like what? Like for example, a pilot piloting a plane is not experimenting, really, you know what I'm saying? Or a brain surgeon is not experimenting, you hope not, okay? So basically, some processes are known, and they apply known things. And typically in those environments, something that's really, really important is called a checklist. So I don't know if you heard about that, you know, the importance of checklists. So the surgeon, before they start, they check the checklist, they have a checklist, right? Or you know, a pilot before flying a plane, they walk around, they fill out the checklist, they need to do that to make sure that you're safe. So that's a different kind of practice, and sometimes it's extremely relevant and extremely important. That's what I wanted to share.
And the last thing is that, as I said, we want to make our Meetup great again. So let's work together.
MMG,
Yeah.
Make Meetup great again.
With that, we're here for networking and talking together. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you, honey.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course,